Welcome back to another edition of Zero Block 30, where Connor once again doesn't even tell me that he's not going to be on the show. What a piece of shit. Yeah, I mean, I understand that he got married this weekend and he's having his little party and he's drinking in the pool and doing stuff, but there's certain things called responsibilities. Disgusting for an officer not to realize that. This is why I hate the whole lot of them. I hate the whole lot of them, and this is just another example why.
Are we rebuking officers officially?
I would say so. I think we need to. I mean, he's like, oh, I'm on a plane. You didn't have time to text. I'm not going to be on the show today. Unbelievable. It's not like we don't do it every day at the same time. I mean, I'm happy for this is why I didn't go to the wedding. When people ask me in the comments on YouTube and on Twitter, and they say, Chaps, why didn't you go to the wedding? This right here. This right here. Somebody's going to be here to still do the show. We have responsibilities. Can't be gallivanting around.
And let me tell you, your boy was gallivanting. There was so much gallivanting, an incredible amount.
As soon as I logged on Instagram, I could get the whiff of gallivanting in the air.
Oh, absolutely. It was a wonderful wedding, though. I had such a lovely time. They had this huge.
Oh, we're not going into the positive yet because it's highfalutin gallivanting.
It was highfalutin gallivanting. Can I say a couple of things though, real quick about the trip in general? I got an Airbnb in Bonita Springs, Florida, which is right near Naples.
Bonita fish, by the way, is a trophy fish.
Really? I was down the street from the Bonita Springs VFW. When I tell you, I went by, because you're up early with the baby every day. So I'm out with the stroller, I'm doing whatever. From the crack of dawn until late at night, I have never seen a VFW more packed. And I'm talking about Wednesday morning, 9:15 a.m., Thursday afternoon, 1:07 p.m. Whatever time I went by the Bonita Springs VFW, and I'm talking like 80 cars, chaps. I'm not talking, they had a huge lot.
Was it St. Patrick's Day vibes, or were they watching the tournament there? Maybe that was it. Maybe they're watching the NCAAs.
It was a one-story, like ranch style building. There was no windows. It's beautiful out. I didn't see a soul outside really, except for a couple people walking in. The place was packed. I wanted to go so fucking bad.
We should make a trip. We should do it just to go down there and see what they're getting into.
Every single day, even the day we left, and even my parents, and Pat, and we were like, "What is going on in that place? We want in. I want to go, but I'm too chicken. I kept chickening out, but I was.
And that seems like your scene. Like you going into a VFW in a small town that you're not familiar with seems exactly like a Cape move.
Oh my! If I didn't have a baby to take care of, I would have for sure been super fucked up at VFW
by there. Honestly,
not anything really. But I was curious about that. And then I had a quick question for you. And am I the asshole? Reddit style question. Whenever I take the baby out for walks or whatever, and we see a dog in the park, he almost flips out of his stroller. He's so excited. He coos. He gets so pumped. It can be any dog, even like the shitty little white ones with boogers coming out of their eyes. You know what I'm talking about?
That wasn't a shot at Baby Dale, right?
Oh.
You fucking bitch.
Anyway.
How dare you?
Anyway, even those dogs he likes. So
I need both of y'all are in my fucking shit house. How dare you, Kate? I would never say something disparaging about King Spork, ever.
I'll say, I don't know how people love those dogs. I'll say it. But anyway, Baby Dale's great. So there was a dog beach nearby, and I'm like, I'll take the baby to the dog beach. Am I the asshole? Because I feel like it's like being an adult that goes to an amusement park if they don't have kids. Like I went to Legoland without kids once, and I was like, I shouldn't be here. This is weird. You know what I mean? Now, bringing a baby to a dog beach, some dogs have never seen a baby before, and like, the baby was getting kind of like, that was kind of a dangerous, stupid thing I did. I feel like.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I wouldn't, right? I don't know if I'd say stupid, definitely more on the dangerous side, like because they're out there. Obviously, you expect dog owners to know what to do with the dog around a baby, but the reality is that most dog owners are idiots. Like they have no idea what they're doing,
right?
Especially those that go to like public park dog owners are usually some of the worst dog owners too, because they're like, oh, it's a dog park, anything goes. I think how you approach the situation makes you or makes you not the asshole. Like if you go into a dog park and you don't expect dogs to come up and be smelling on your baby or licking them or something like that, you're just delusional. Like why go into their area and expect them to have like nursery rules? That's not realistic.
Yeah, I every time a dog came around, I would pick the baby up first and I would really, really, really get the vibe. And then if the owner came over, I'd be like, hey, what's the vibe? And then whatever. And just I kept them just around small dogs. I tried to, but I kept feeling like I was like, people are probably looking at me like this asshole brought her baby and no dog to this
They
dog
probably
beach.
were.
Yeah.
Because
It
honest
was
to
probably
God,
very stressful for them.
what owner is like, you go up to them and they'll be like, hey, does your dog like kids? Oh no, they'll bite the shit out of a kid. Nobody wants to admit that. Like, that's a
Yeah.
dog owner. Even dog owners that have asshole dogs, they're like, he's fine, he's just got to get used to you. Meanwhile, your legs are bleeding and you're scratched as shit because they keep jumping up on you and stuff. That's the worst part about dog owners that don't know how to train, is that their dogs are always scratching on you with their long ass nails and shit. Get that out of my face.
Well, I took him twice. We had such a great time the first time. I took him back, and even the whole time in my head, I was like,
you need to get him a puppy. He needs a dog.
I know. I was like, this is probably the wrong thing to be doing, but I was hooked. He fucking loved it. We were sniffing all around. He was chasing elderly dogs around, but it was probably extremely irresponsible. And I feel like it's okay because I knew we were being assholes and it was dangerous.
Well, and I imagine from knowing you, apologized a bunch of times for being there.
I kept saying, sorry, I know this is your guys' beach. No, this is your guys' beach, not mine.
This is your domain. You want to shit? There's not much we can do.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I don't know. But I fucking love Florida, man. I can see me being a Florida woman and being a bartender, being an old bartender with fake
at
tits.
that VFW.
At that VFW when I'm older, having like no ass, skinny legs, and then just huge tits and fake blonde hair when I'm like
big
60.
Bonita Beach vibes. Big Bonita Beach.
I would cry. Give me some time. That's probably where I'll retire. But anyway, it was a lovely time. Great wedding, delicious hors d'oeuvres. Moving on.
And it was also a delicious drink. I saw a bunch of people were crushing those Whistle Pig cans that they have with the blackberry lemon fizz, the fresh ginger lime, and the citrus mint. They have all kinds of stuff, and you don't have to go to Bonita Springs to pick it up. You can get it at your house. They'll ship it to you. If you go to cans.whistlepig.com, you're going to receive 10% off with the promo code ZBT2022. All of it is grown from the estate grown rye there at the Whistle Pig Farm in Vermont. It's beautiful. Some of our pals have been up there. They fruit it in a barrel aged in a whiskey barrel. It gives you some whiskey notes too. It's a fantastic drink to have, especially with spring coming up, and it's 8% alcohol by volume. Again, go to cans.whistlepig.com with the promo code ZBT22 to receive 10% off. Big time. I've been going around. I have to say, I was very pleased at the military doctor today whenever I went in there. There wasn't a bunch of folks. I don't know why there wasn't a whole bunch of people, but I saw correction that took place.
Oh, love a good correction.
It was such a good correction. It was like I think it was a master sergeant. It was a master sergeant first class. I couldn't see like across the hallway, but there was very clearly a boot, because at this the doctor that I go to, Fort Sam Houston, there's also like boot camps around there. So sometimes the boot camp kids will be going to the different medical appointments there, and he was walking by with like a little backpack on that only had like a water bottle on it. It was like a water bottle fanny pack backpack. I'd never seen anything like it. It was like the geekiest looking shit. And I even thought, like, when he walked by, I was like, what the fuck is that? Why is he wearing that on the uniform? And the sergeant first class or mess sergeant called him over. He's like, hey there, private, come here. What are you doing? This is a public area. You're not at the PT field. You're not at the gym. Take that off and carry it in your hand like you have some discipline. And I was like, oh, yes, get him. Don't allow that fucking water bottle backpack bitch walking around the doctor while I'm trying to go to a neurology appointment. Are you insane? I don't want to see that nastiness. It's not a bedroom.
It's the little things. Really, and obviously the guy did it, right?
Yeah, he took of course he took it off. It was like, oh, roger that, sorry about that, no problem at all. So I was happy about that. I've also been knee deep in that book that you told us about the South Pole. I've been reading on that at night.
Shackleton's Way.
Oh, I haven't even told you what the rounds are. We have 5 rounds in the magazine today. Round number 1, there's some crime that happened on the South Pole. And this crime is wild. I actually heard another little tidbit. Did you know that there's an area outside of Yellowstone National Park that it's nearly impossible to convict somebody of murder?
What?
Yes, because an element of convictions, there has to be a pool of people for jurors that can be taken from your peers in your area. And there's a little part of Yellowstone. There's a designated section in Yellowstone that there's not technically enough people from the population to build a jury around the area that you have to do it. So they couldn't even charge you with the crime if they wanted to.
Wow. Good to know in case I feel crimey.
Oh yeah, I've been doing a lot of true crime goof. And round number 2, we have a leadership breakdown. Urban Meyer, there was a big, I would say it's an expose that came out on Urban Meyer and some of his leadership or lack thereof that happened when he was in Jacksonville. And it is remarkable how just incompetent he is. So we're going to go through some of that. Round number 3, the VA is removing caretaker support to families and thousands of veterans, and the red tape is more than ever. They don't know how to get around this. So we're going to try to help that a little bit, because I've gotten several notes about people that have had caretakers for a while, and the next thing you know, they take it away with only like 60 to 90 days to get your stuff in order. Round number 4, we've been seeing a lot of stories about Russians' Wagner Group in Ukraine, but they're also causing trouble in Africa like they have been for the last decade, really. They've been doing that in Africa and Syria as well. And finally, round number 5, the BBC did a deep dive on Russia's military mistakes so far, and a few other notes from Ukraine as well. Let's get going with round number 1. We're going to go down to Antarctica. To me, the idea of living in a super remote area has always been kind of attractive. Like I could see why people will do it, but then it's not something that I would ever pull the trigger on, ever.
You know what? I know it's not quite comparable, but say I'm just a piece of shit all weekend in my apartment when I lived in New York City, and I'm hungover or whatever, and I don't go out and I do nothing all weekend. I feel like shit about myself come Monday. I'm like, I hate myself, whatever. But when you're in a situation where you can't go anywhere, like when COVID hit and I was stuck in that apartment and I couldn't go anywhere, mentally, I was able to like accept it, really start to enjoy it in a weird way, get goofy, creative, weird. And there was something like, I look back on that time with affection almost, and I feel like when you take on a mission like that, like you already know it's going to be that, like, and once you accept that there's nowhere you can go, nothing you can do about it, like you can really settle in and actually enjoy missions like this, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I get that, but I also think about the amount of work that would be involved if you're going to a place like South Africa or to Antarctica, to the South Pole. Like if you're going down there, there's not going to be a day really where you can just be like, you know what, let me put my feet up and enjoy a chicken noodle soup. Like you had that ability when you're in New York, when you're in Queens in a small apartment.
Right,
you
slightly different vibe, I suppose.
Yeah, you can use Instacart, you can use Uber Eats, but you're in the South Pole. Like you come down with a cold for a couple days and you're running out of wood. First of all, where the fuck do you even get wood in the South Pole? Like, where do you get all these materials that you need? Like, there's this documentary that I watch. It's called Happy People. If you haven't watched it, it's on Amazon Prime. And it's about this dude that gets in trouble in like his early 20s, and gets basically banished to Siberia. And he gets stuck in the middle of Siberian forest, and he has to learn how to do everything on his own. And now he's been living there for 20 years. But every single thing that he does in life is difficult. Like just going to the bathroom, like you got to put on all kinds of clothes just to go outside and go use the bathroom to do anything, to get any type of food. It's a nightmare. If you run out of something, you don't got it. You just got to deal without. It would be a crazy endeavor. And I imagine it's one that if you've been living that isolated of a life, like think about when you come back after even just being on a deployment or something like that, where you're dealing with the same group of people all the time. Eventually you kind of fucking hate everybody that you're around. If you're around them that much, I would imagine it leads to some stabbings. And that's exactly what happened in old South Pole. And that's why we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Both of us giving this whole long intro, we went down a rabbit hole on crimes in Antarctica. And it's really interesting because it's not really a country. So what happens if you commit a crime there? Like who decides who's guilty, whatever. So while crime in Antarctica is relatively rare, isolation and boredom can affect people and lead to crime. Alcoholism is also a known problem on the continent and has led to fights and indecent exposure. Other types of crime that have happened there: illicit drug use, torturing and killing wildlife, racing motorbikes through environmentally sensitive areas, assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder, arson, sexual harassment. The list goes on. Robberies. Antarctica is the Wild West, my friend. But really not too much crime. But when it does happen, it's usually pretty crazy. I'm going to read a couple of the examples here. In 1959, the Vostok Station, a Soviet research station, was the scene of a fight between two scientists over a game of chess. When one of them lost the game, he became so enraged he attacked the other with an ice axe. According to some sources, it was murder, though some others say the attack was not fatal. Nobody really knows because the KGB, they did an investigation and nobody's sure whether the guy lived, died, what happened to them. But we do know the KGB banned chess.
Yeah, like, so they're like, we're not sure what's happening here. This was definitely a dad of a toddler or a mom of a toddler who decided this punishment. Came in, listened to both sides, and was like, listen, I don't know who was in the wrong for hitting who with an ice axe. What I do know, chess is banned.
No more chess. No
Which
more
is the
chess
right move.
I agree. This reminded me, I got in a game of spades on my first deployment. And it was towards the end of the deployment.
Spades
We
can get
played
very
spades.
heated.
We played all the time. I got so upset during this game of spades that I had to hold back like rage tears. And I almost had to step away, and I like wanted to throw fists over. I like lost my sense of reality and almost lost my mind over a game of spades and like had to step away from the moment. And then later I was like, well, that was weird. Huh.
Well, it doesn't matter how trivial the game is. Like, even on, like, we play as a family now on the Nintendo Switch, we'll play the Monopoly game because Nintendo Switch makes it so much easier. You don't have to, nobody needs to be a banker. Nobody has to do all that shit. It's done automatically. Still, man, like playing on Switch, somebody be like, it's my turn. You hit B on my turn to roll. I got 4. I probably would have got a 6. And in your head, you're like, this is Switch Monopoly. Who gives a fuck? But everybody's been at that moment where you're about to fucking lose it.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of, in April of 1984, at an Argentinian research station, it was burned down by the station's leader and doctor after he was ordered to stay for the winter. So he didn't want to stay. They're like, no, sorry, you have to stay. And he was like, fine, I'll burn this whole motherfucker to the ground. And he did. A man of his word.
Can't blame him. Honest to God, staring down the dick of a winter in the South Pole.
Or the
no
flap.
Thanks.
Thank
or
you.
flap. Yeah.
Thank you. But basically, station personnel had to be rescued by the ship Hero and taken to an American research station on another island. So
everybody probably secretly loved that guy, though.
Everybody probably loved that guy. In 1996 at McMurdo Station, an American station, a fight occurred between two workers in the kitchen where one attacked another with a hammer. Another cook tried to break up the fight and was also injured. The two victims were Tony Meyer and Joe Sturmer. Both required stitches. You tell 23-year-old Kate you got that scar fighting with hammers in Antarctica. Yes.
And they are fucking around with some small weapons. We're not talking about like, oh, he hit me with a wooden spoon. Like, you got hit with an ice axe and a fucking hammer.
You got hit with a hammer. And it's weird. I feel like the kitchen has so many other options. And hammer's one of the least I would think of first. In a kitchen.
And it definitely wasn't a ball peen hammer. If it was a ball peen hammer, that's something they would have mentioned.
That's something they would have mentioned. So who knows? But FBI agents from the United States had to go all the way down there to investigate and make an arrest. The suspect was then flown to Honolulu, where he faced charges on 4 counts of assault with a dangerous weapon. He pleaded not guilty.
And that's interesting because, like, whenever I used to live in Okinawa, if you got charged with something on base, like a felony crime on base, I don't know if it's still this way, but when I lived there, it was there, or at least this was a rumor. I'm not even sure if this is completely legally accurate, but this is what I was told. So whenever you live there, if somebody gets charged with like a 1st-degree felony, like murder, rape, assault with a deadly weapon, something like that. If you get charged with the 1st-degree felony, you had to go to Guam because that was the only high enough U.S. consulate that had a judge that could listen to that case. Everything else was technically a misdemeanor. Oh. So if you're in Antarctica, that's why he would have to go to Hawaii because there's no consulate there.
I just imagine you're in the FBI, you're at home sleeping, you get a call and you're like, I have to go where? Why? Huh?
Be pissed, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, these guys, like a lot of these guys and ladies, a lot of these investigators are all attorneys too. Like a lot of the secret agents are special agents for the FBI and things like that. They will have law degrees as well. So you go to law school, you pass the fucking bar, and you're chilling in Hawaii, and they're like, hey, dude, you got to go down to South America to invest these guys that were hitting each other in the kitchen with hammers. Like,
okay, fine. God damn it. May 2000. It was an American stations, the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, an Australian astrophysicist named Rodney Marks. He had a fever, stomach pains, nausea. On the 12th of May, he died. Everyone was like, oh, it must be natural causes. It was at the onset of winter, so they couldn't send his body out for 6 months. 6 months they had to keep his dead body there on the base. It was put into a freezer at the observatory. After 6 months were over, they flew his body to New Zealand for an autopsy that concluded he had died from methanol poisoning. And that's like a non-drinking type of alcohol for industrial and automotive purposes. So for 6 months, this frozen body was there, and there was a murderer probably among them.
And you don't
nobody
have
knows who it was.
You don't have a whole shit ton of people that are there or big refrigerators. So imagine if you're like trying to go cook a chicken breast, next thing you know, Rodney's fucking staring at you.
Rodney's
like,
in there.
Hey, Rodney, I'm about to make some coleslaw. You want some? Like, and Rodney doesn't, because Rodney's fucking dead.
You know, I wouldn't mind that sort of people visit.
Rodney being in the freezer?
No, it put me in the freezer when I die. I mean,
oh yeah, I don't care where I go. Yeah,
every time you go for your Haagen-Dazs, you say, "Hey, Kate, what's going on?" And I say, "My soul would give you a wink." Finally, this last one.
Hold on, before you say that, the idea of death. What do you want to happen to you when you die? Do you want to get buried or do you want to get cremated? What?
Honestly, I'd probably donate my body to science.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, because then
Dolores.
I'm pretty sure you get a free cremation after that.
Yeah, you definitely do.
So you know what's crazy?
Cremation. One-time use though.
One-time use. I did a blog recently about this. You donate your body to science. Mm-hmm. There's certain groups, and this one group is like, donate your body to us, and we'll pay for your funeral expenses, your cremation, whatever. We can't tell your family when they're going to get your body back, but they'll get it eventually. And what they do, they'll collect, say like it takes them like a few months, but they get like 15 donor bodies. They set them up in this big room, and then they have several facilities near major airports. They'll invite a bunch of doctors in to do training on you. So they provide the bodies, they provide the tables, they provide the rooms, the whatever for these doctors and stuff to fly in and do it at their, I don't know. There's this whole crazy industry out there and they're making money off it, by the way. Like they charge all these doctors and all these hospitals and all these whatever to do it. So you're donating your body for free.
They're making money off you.
Yeah, and they're making a ton of money off it. It's crazy.
Capitalism, baby. They got it going on.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I wouldn't mind doing?
What?
Do you know, so when you're in Grand Central Station or you're at Penn Station or something like that, and you're getting ready to leave and walk back up to 34th or 7th Avenue, and you know, a lot of the times the stairs, it'll be like 3 stories high of stairs where they'll have advertisement where it looks like it's one long advertisement, but it's really just a sliver of each little piece of advertisement while you're going up the stairs. What if when I die, I get frozen, chopped into thin pieces, and then somebody fans me out over like 300 feet at my funeral, and it makes me look like I'm like 200 feet tall.
You should do that. I think
that would be incredible.
It would be a memorable thing.
Like, holy shit, look at Chaps. That bitch is big.
He's way taller in person.
Yeah, that motherfucker's huge.
I would say
skinny though.
I would say cremate me and toss me in the ocean, but then what if my ashes wind up settling next to Osama bin Laden's ashes?
Yeah, you don't want that. Be neighbors
Awkward.
with Osama.
Awkward.
We also talked about doing cremation, and the we here is my wife and I. When we went to Hawaii, there's this beautiful, beautiful Buddhist temple, and they have wonderful banyan trees and things like that all around. I would love to be put into a tree and put on like a nature reserve where I could like nourish the tree, and then the tree grows up to be me. And then next thing you know, I'm paper. I'd be sick.
It's something to think about.
It is something to think about. All right, let's move on to round number 2. We're going to talk a little bit about Urban Meyer. This article is fascinating. I thought once again that Cons would be here to have a little bit of football talk, but luckily I have Katie Football here with me to walk through this story as well. As you might know, or if you don't follow sports at all, you might not, but most of you probably do know. Urban Meyer was fired as the coach of the Jags with 4 games left. He was brought in as a 3-time national champion. He had 2 at Florida and 1 at Ohio State. Big time college football, probably top 5 college football coaches of all time. Came to Jacksonville this year with Trevor Lawrence with big expectations. How it turned out was awful. And this is honest to God, it's shocking that this story is happening, because I would picture like high level coaches, even ones that aren't national championships, how to be a leader. Like you would think that's like the bare minimum to be a college football coach or a coach of any kind, is to be a leader and know how to be a people person, how to deal with different types of personalities. This story is legitimately insane. Kate, walk us through this article that's from The Athletic, and it's fantastic.
Okay. Urban Meyer burst into a room full of players at the Jaguars facility. He was furious. One of his players had missed an assignment during a preseason game, leading to a busted play. Meyer was enraged when it happened. A day later, he was still fuming. If the mistake ever happened again, Meyer warned, he would cut every single one of them. And do you know what would happen if I cut you guys, Meyer said, according to 4 people in the room? You couldn't get a job paying more than $15 an hour. The implication that his players were capable of little more than playing football left some angry, others offended. I lost all respect for him after that, a veteran player in the room said. That.
And also, no, you're not. Like, even if you wanted to, this is not college. It's not high school. These players have contracts. Like, lots of them are guaranteed on week 1. Like, if you're on the team in week 1, your contract is guaranteed. Several of them have signing bonuses that they're never going to get back. You're not cutting all the fucking players. Like, going in, and that's one leadership lesson. Don't offer threats that you can't actually fulfill. Like, because once you do it once and people can figure it out, you're done.
2, read even the tiniest bit into what he just said there.
Oh yeah, call him stupid. Right.
He's calling them stupid. And I feel like there's a whole lot of other implications to what he's saying there, that basically saying, I don't respect a single one of you. I think you're all stupid going. And I don't. Yeah.
Wait, just wait. It gets worse.
Meyer arrived in Jacksonville with a mixed resume. He had won national championships at Florida and Ohio State, but he brought plenty of baggage, ranging from harsh treatment of players and staff to mishandling domestic abuse allegations levied against one of his longest tenured assistants, Zach Smith. And that whole story, also very fucked up. Friends and family over the years have labeled Meyer a control freak and perfectionist. And as he climbed the ranks, he developed a reputation as a tough, obsessive, win-at-all-cost coach who, by his own admission, was addicted to victory. But according to coaches, players, and staff in Jacksonville, Meyer crossed the line from tough and demanding to belittling, demeaning, and leading by fear. The most toxic environment I've ever been part of, a veteran member of the football operations staff said, by far, not even close. And I feel like in the football world, that says a lot.
Right.
Probably around a whole lot of toxic ass shit.
Yeah.
Receiver DJ Chark, who signed with the Lions last week after spending the first 4 years of his career with the Jags, said Meyer routinely threatened to fire coaches and cut players. He feels like threats are what motivates, Chark said. I know he would come up to us and tell us if the receivers weren't doing good, he wasn't going to fire us. He was going to fire our coach. He would usually say that when the coach was around. Giant asshole. Signs of dysfunction were apparent early on. Several sources say Meyer stepped into the job as if he had all the answers, even though he had never coached in the NFL. Meyer said he conducted a 6-month deep dive on the NFL that included interviews with his former Florida and Ohio State players, as well as a study of the salary cap. But multiple sources said Meyer was unfamiliar with star players around the league, including 49ers receiver Deebo Samuel. If even I know a name, buddy, come on.
Right.
Seahawks safety
and it
Jamal
gets even
Adams.
worse. Like, the names that he doesn't know is, and I don't know if it's because some of these, like Deebo Samuel and Aaron Donald played at Pitt. Like, even though Pitt is an ACC school, I'm not sure how much he was familiar with ACC schools, except for Florida State whenever he was playing at Ohio State or coaching at those schools. Legitimately crazy though. Like, the next guy that he doesn't know, if you don't know him, you just don't watch pro football. Like, simple as that.
Seahawks safety Jamal Adams and Rams defensive tackle Aaron Donald. He's a 3-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year. A lot of people have heard
and many
him.
people would say, even Brady was playing and Rodgers was playing, Aaron Donald is the best player in the NFL. Like, maybe not the most valuable, but best pure player, top to bottom. It's Aaron Donald. He's the most, and it's been that way for about 5 years. He's just been dominant.
Who's this 99 guy on the Rams? Myers asked one staffer during the season, according to a source. I'm hearing he might be a problem for us. In training camp, Meyer pushed for live contact drills despite objections from veteran coaches. One of those drills fell on what Meyer called winner and loser days. 2 players would compete and the winner would be announced over the loudspeaker. After one blocking drill, Meyer insisted Chark do extra reps. The receiver suffered a broken finger, underwent surgery, and missed the preseason. Meyer also forbade players from speaking with opponents on the field before games. Once claimed the Jags
that one
lost.
just triggered me. I missed that paragraph when I was reading it, I guess, because DJ Chark wasn't the same like this year as he had been, and Trevor Lawrence really needed a guy like DJ Chark, and he didn't have him.
Meyer also forbade players from speaking with opponents on the field before games. Once claimed the Jags lost because they dressed sloppily and told offensive players he wanted them to dunk the ball over the goalpost after touchdowns, even though doing so would draw a fine from the league. But more than Meyer's coaching quirks, the way he treated people troubled some in the organization. Not long after veteran receiver John Brown signed with the Jags as a free agent, he ran the wrong route in practice. To correct the mistake, Brown, who is from Florida, and rookie quarterback Trevor Lawrence ran through it again after practice. Meyer walked up to the pair. "Hey, Trevor, you've got to slow it down for him. These boys from the South, their scripts ain't right." You piece of shit.
Yeah, like
You
so many
piece of shit.
And like there's certain things like he says this, like just a one-off, maybe he's not racist, but you combine everything else, the way that it goes, everybody's going to be making $15. You're lucky to be here. Like all those things. Oh, big time. So much of it's racially motivated. So much.
Right. You don't have to read far into it. Another time during a meeting that also included members of the coaching and personnel staffs, Meyer berated a player so harshly the player cried. According to two sources, Meyer slammed the door after departing the meeting, leaving others to console the player. The next day, one of the other staff members confronted Meyer about the incident and what led to like a tense exchange. Sources said Meyer repeatedly belittled his staff to its members' faces. He told his assistants he was a winner and they were losers, then demanded they defend their resumes. One player said it was coaches that often looked drained whenever they left staff meetings with Meyer. "The players got it bad when it came to him talking to us, but I believe the coaches got it worse," said another player. "You've got players in fear they're going to lose their jobs," Chark said. "You've got coaches who he belittled in front of us, and I can only imagine what he was doing behind closed doors. I'm surprised he lasted that long, to be honest with you." Meyer was fired for cause on December 15th. Shortly after Lambeau, the Jaguars kicker, accused Meyer of kicking him during warm-up, saying, "Hey, dipshit, make your fucking kicks." Meyer admitted in an interview with Dan Dakich.
No, you got it right. You got it right.
that he made contact with Lambeau, but denied kicking him. Meyer, who still had 4 years left on his contract, seemed to blame his behavior on losing. "It eats away at your soul," he told Dakich, and said he went through that whole depression thing to where I'd stare at the ceilings. On the day Meyer was
that part about Meyer has been his MO for so long, and people let him get away with it. Like, oh, I act like an asshole because after games because I'm such a competitor. Fuck you. That you're not more of a competitor than everybody else. Everybody else is just more of a grown-up that knows how to deal with it more. You think Bill Belichick likes to lose? You think anybody that rises to those ranks in the coaching profession likes to lose? But all of it's Meyer that is the one that can't handle it, and it just means so much more to him that he can't even function. He's a fucking pussy from top to bottom. Everything. He's a very typical guy who rises to the ranks by being fake as shit, and now he's in a position of a power, and he abuses that power and makes him a fucking weakling.
And too, like looking at when the whole team flew back after a game, but he stayed in Ohio to go to his bar, and that night he's like diddling some lady's butthole while his wife's at home.
Big time diddling.
While his wife's at home giving the grandkids a bath, and he's out publicly like just being a creep. He gives me the vibes. There's a certain type of guy that I always picture at who sings Margaritaville?
Jimmy Buffett.
There's this older middle-aged guy at a Jimmy Buffett concert who women know to kind of stay away from. And that's Urban Meyer to me. He's a little racist. He's a little grabby. He's a little weird. He's going to say some real inappropriate shit around you after a couple beers and not care because he's so entitled to whatever. Like that's the vibe I get from Meyer as a creep at a Margaritaville concert. But anyway,
he's the football version of Don Draper is what he thinks he is.
Is what he thinks he is.
Right.
But yeah. And too, like in the Marine Corps, there was a culture of like, yes, people got yelled at publicly, but the leaders that did it over and over and over again, instead of pulling your Marine to the side, like, sure, you can yell every now and then at somebody for something if it's like egregious enough. But if you're a shitty leader, you're just going to keep belittling them instead of pulling them aside eventually and taking them under your wing privately and mentoring them. If you have to keep belittling somebody over and over in front of others, it's you that has lost control.
And
not
what
the
comes
person you're-
after that? I think that there is especially in environments like the military, public correction is fine because your mistakes are going to be public. Like people are going to see how you're operating, how you're doing things technically, and that is an issue. Like it needs to be corrected publicly. But what do you do after you make the correction? Do you make the correction with the intent on training the troop and or training the player and how they're going to get better? If your answer is just to yell at them and not have any type of corrective action afterwards, then you miss the boat. Like that's the entire purpose, is to have the deficiency that's identify it so everybody else can see it too, and everybody can learn from this one mistake, and then identify a corrective action and how you move forward.
Too, like you talked about the guy calling at your appointment today, who's like, "Hey, your water bottle's inappropriate, fix it." He wasn't like, "Hey, you dumb poor idiot."
Hey, you fucking piece of shit.
Right.
Hey, they're fucking kitchen gloves. Like,
right.
He wasn't doing that.
There's a difference between yelling at somebody openly and belittling somebody openly, and the latter doesn't really accomplish much. Which leads us to Lethality Jane on Twitter asked, "What's the stupidest thing you've ever had a commander say to you?" Mine was a battalion commander at a previous unit telling my company, "I have no idea what it is you guys do."
That's very first sergeant vibes in the Marine Corps, because first sergeants, that's their MOS is first sergeant. So a lot of times they can be put in an MOS where they don't know and they have to learn everything that they do. But she goes on to say that this guy never attempted to learn what they do.
Right. And that sounds like he didn't really attempt to learn the NFL. He didn't know some of the main players, that he didn't know anything from anything, and didn't seem like he tried to adapt or change at all. He tried to make them like he was coaching a college team and college kids when they are clearly grown adults with a very different vibe. Out of Reg said, company commander trying to tell a soldier she couldn't leave junior ROTC after her husband had a mental breakdown and had to be hospitalized. She asked him what he would do if it was his wife, and he responded, "She isn't that weak." It did not end well for him. At Long Live the 51 said, not a commander or a spoken word, but my company first sergeant spent our entire training budget for the fiscal year on paint and pressure washers. He wanted each pair of Marines to paint their rooms, which got quickly shut down by the battalion sergeant major, and all the power washers were stolen. Oh my God. I love that. In an earlier workup, he had our junior Marines throw broken furniture out of the rooms off the second and third floors. This furniture belonged to G6, and the damages ended up being over $28,000. He got off scot-free, by the way.
Matt, what do you think the first sergeant walks into the battalion sergeant major like
you?
Oh yeah.
You.
Sorry about that, because it's just so egregiously stupid to have your Marines paint. Like, sure, they can do it, but the things, once you've been in for a while, you should know they're not supposed to do that. Like, you have actual contractors for the buildings that own those buildings, and they always think that they own it. Like battalion commanders, sergeant major, first sergeant, like, my barracks, that's my. No, it's not. It's under contractual control by a civilian contractor. It's not yours. You have tenants that live there who happen to be your Marines, but that's it.
Yeah. At the OS 96 said, me and the S2 showing our battalion commander info about how a corrupt sheikh was playing us by taking way too much of the money we were funneling into the AO for reconstruction to his Syrian bank. Basically, like, we used to just give tons of money to people all over wherever we were in the Middle East. And I mean, it was all corruption anyway. But anyway, their battalion commander said, just tell us the guy had never lied to him and that we were wrong. It's easier just to go
because the
along with
IRS
the
ain't coming knocking. Like, they're not coming to knock.
It's easier to just let it go because it's happening all over, whatever. Classy Warfare said that we were wrong to stop a training exercise due to heat injuries and going black on food and water because, and I quote, the Taliban won't care how hot you are.
That's a good point.
That's a great point. After I got back from Afghanistan, this is somebody else, it's Marie McCurdy. After I got back from Afghanistan, I stood in a field day formation in which some Pogue staff sergeant screamed about how Marines die in combat because we don't clean our rooms right. That could be true. I've heard that before. But yeah, a lot of good examples here. At the birthday ball, the commander asked my date if we had any kids. It was our first date. I was a principal staff officer. He'd been my CO for 6 months. Just
Not
weird.
Great. Not great.
Yeah.
And one more. We'll do one more. At the birthday ball, I asked my date if we had any kids, and he had been there for 6 months. It's just one of those things. You got to know your people. Like, if you are knowing your people, these kind of problems don't happen. I still am just flabbergasted that Urban Meyer did all that stuff. Like, how do you, one, to go from being one of the best college football coaches of all time to now he's widely considered the worst head coach in NFL history? Like, what a bizarre turn of events.
I don't think it's bizarre, and I'm actually surprised so many people are flabbergasted, because if you look all the way back to like stories that have eked out since he was at Florida, Ohio, whatever, like he's been shitty the whole time. Like he always has been. It's not a surprise, but I feel like it's convenient for everyone to act like it's a surprise. It's just the level of shittiness.
Like, it's just so obvious. Like, I think that it's different when you find out somebody doesn't like tip well, or kind of an asshole to their neighbors. But when you're talking about this kind of stuff over and over and over again, and we didn't even get to the part about Tebow. Like, there was a part about Tebow too, where even after he cut Tebow, or Tebow got cut, they had Tebow Tuesdays in the fucking NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. The whole thing's just bizarre, and good riddance. I'm sure he'll be coaching somewhere great again soon, and he'll be just fine. So. Do you think?
Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say. All right, let's move on to round number three. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll keep this short. I keep hearing the Wagner Group pop up everywhere. Like they're these badass, like Russian mercenaries or something, that I feel like everyone's like building them up. And I was like, who are these guys? What is this? So I just wanted to do a little research and look into it.
And we'll do that after this quick message. Here we go.
American officials say they had seen that the Wagner Group's involvement in the war had been going on like long before it even started. They've been meddling around Ukraine. But from a it's interesting that Putin says, no, I'm not connected to them. And from a legal perspective, Wagner doesn't exist, said Saoirse McLeod, who heads the UN's working group on the use of mercenaries. Instead of a single entity, Wagner is a network of companies and groups. According to a European Union relegation implementing sanctions against the group and certain people, it was founded by Dmitry Utkin, a former Russian soldier adorned with Nazi tattoos. It was reportedly named after Hitler's favorite composer. And in 2016, Utkin was photographed alongside Putin at a Kremlin event, hinting at the group's powerful ties. So Putin's like, no, I have nothing to do with them, but there's proof of them being in cahoots together. Wagner is thought to be funded by this super powerful businessman who is alleged to run the Internet Research Agency, aka Russia's troll farm, which you look
Cons
up,
knows about, yeah.
Yes, Cons knows about that well. The Russian armed forces work closely with this group, reportedly providing it with munitions and transport aircraft. The head of Ukraine Security Services has likened Wagner to like Putin's private army, essentially. So Putin says he's not connected to them, whatever, but it's more like this private army that allows him to skirt, not that he's already not skirting all sorts of laws of war or everything, but they allow him to do more. And in a way, I was wondering too, like we have all sorts of contractors and all sorts of that kind of did their own thing in the Middle East. I know it's not quite the same thing, but I feel like I didn't know the UN had
draw pretty clear similarities, maybe not the motivations and things behind it, but there's definitely some horrific shit that a lot of the US contractors did as well.
Yeah. And like, so I didn't realize the UN has a whole thing trying to deal with each country has its own mercenaries sort of to skirt all these military laws. And the Wagner Group's one of the more formidable ones. Well, just yesterday, America's top commander for Africa said he personally urged Mali's ruling party to not invite the Wagner Group before it turned and did just that. The West African country's transitional government has allowed in over 1,000 from the Wagner Group since December, highlighting competing efforts by Russia and the US to wield influence in the region. The private military company has been linked by the US government with deep Kremlin connections, like we were just talking about. But Mali's been at the center of Western counter-terror efforts, and the instability is expected to rise. France is ending a 9-year troop presence there. And so now it's going to be sort of chaos. And so the government is unable to control Mali. So they're like, we'll call in, we need extra help. Let's use these Russian mercenaries. And the US and all these other advisors were like, Mali, we really think you shouldn't do that. That's going to be bad news bears. The head of US Africa
That was a direct
Command
quote from Secretary Blinken.
It was, yeah. General Stephen Townsend, he's the head of US Africa Command. He went there. He traveled to Mali to meet with the president and explained that this is a bad idea because we've seen them in Syria and other places in Africa. Reading this, I felt like, did you ever read about when the Rolling Stones asked the Hells Angels to provide security at their concert and a bunch of people died and got stabbed? And
oh no, I didn't see that.
Oh, this is like back in the 70s or something. The Rolling Stones used the Hells Angels to be concert security instead of the police or whatever, and all hell broke loose. And it was like a version of that pretty much. Wagner obeys no rules. They don't follow the direction of the government. The president, according to Townsend, the president said he was dealing with only Russia's defense ministry. That conflicts with Putin's statement last month that the state has nothing to do with Russian military contractors in Mali. The Wagner Group, which is establishing its base camps, may make some initial gains, but already suffered casualties at the hands of extremist groups there. Mercenaries from the Kremlin's Wagner Group offer their services for profit. Regime protection, resource exploitation, and they commit horrific violence against Africans, much like the kind that you're seeing in Ukraine today. So the troubling thing is the UN resolution this month, they did a resolution to condemn the invasion of Ukraine. Only 28 out of 54 African countries, roughly half, voted in favor of the resolution. But it's showing there's very, very, very strong Russian influence forming in Africa.
Yeah, and they're also sending people to augment the Wagner Group. Like there's different African nations that are sending fighters, foreign fighters, to go to Ukraine to fight on the side of the Russians as well. That's been happening.
Yeah.
Too.
And I guess I just included that story because I wasn't quite sure what the Wagner, I kept seeing stuff pop up about them, but I wasn't quite sure what they were and what they were doing. And I guess we kind of forget too, like I'm so focused on Ukraine that like there's so much other stuff going on around the world right now too. That's crazy. But yeah, I was wondering, final question then, like say Blackwater was I know it's not comparable, but just say that was like our version of Wagner Group. Could they go into Ukraine and fight the Russians on behalf of the US? Like, would that
absolutely
break UN rules or no? Like,
well, sure. Like they could definitely do it, get hired to do it because it's a private contractor that again has no formal controlling ties. There's contracts that you have, like Blackwater had contracts with different defense agencies and things like that, but ultimately there's no like command. Like you don't have the UCMJ for Blackwater or something like that, so they aren't beholden to them. They could definitely get hired to go work somewhere else. I mean, we did that. I know a ton of dog handlers that would go overseas in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, places like that weren't even working for the US government, that they would get contracted by like the French or by the Germans or somebody like that, where you work for them as a dog handler in the same theater that you would work with Americans. It was bizarre, but it happened.
I'm curious to see. I don't know.
And made good damn money too. A lot of those dog handlers were there going 6 months strip, 180, 200K a year.
Oh, on my second tour working with contractors that did the same job as me, but made like over 150,000 more than I was making for the same job. It was crazy. So yeah, I was just curious.
There's no insurance too. Like that's what made those jobs legitimately crazy town. Like to go be a dog handler where you're looking for IEDs and still doing like down the street type of missions, and they're telling you we're not going to pay for any medical bills that you might get. Like that is hubris. That is the mindset of the young troop that's 25 or younger. That's just like, oh, who cares? As an adult who's almost 40 now with kids, if you told me you got to go to a combat zone, but we're not going to give you medical insurance, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. But then I was like, oh, hell yeah. No medical insurance. That just means I get paid more.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's just an adventure, man. It's just an adventure. Mm-hmm. But it's Mercenaries a great way for different countries to skirt all sorts of rules. And so Putin can say, no, I don't have any presence in Africa, but sure does, so just kind of interested in following that group and seeing what they're up to.
Yeah. And some of those folks, whenever they came back, they had big time problems, like not the contractors, but actual troops. When you come back, you have issues that come about from some of your injuries or disabilities that you gained while you're in the military. So in round number 4, we're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on there. All right, let's move on to round number 4. These kind of stories are really heartbreaking, and we really need to hammer home veteran service organizations much more. And we'll do that too.
Yeah. So 36-year-old Afghan, this comes from Patricia Kime at military.com. The 36-year-old Afghanistan war veteran cannot be left alone with his kids because his hallucinations and outbursts make him a danger to himself and others. He must be handed his medications or he will forget to take them. He does not drive or work or manage his finances, having once spent thousands of dollars in a wild shopping spree while experiencing mania. Still, the former Army sergeant has not been hospitalized for mental health issues in nearly 5 years, an achievement he and his wife attribute to her providing around-the-clock care for him, supported by the VA program of Comprehensive Assistant for Family Caregivers. So instead of having somebody on the outside come in, the VA has this caregiver program where your spouse or maybe your sister or brother or mom or dad or whatever, they're the ones taking care of you and getting paid to do so. In addition to, and you can obviously, I don't have to get into it, the benefits of that are massive for so many reasons. It's probably the best to have somebody who knows you better than anybody caring for you if financially it can be possible. In addition to providing healthcare coverage, the program pays the veteran a stipend that allows the spouse to care for them instead of a home health aide. But in the past month, the couple who live in South Carolina, they requested anonymity so they could speak freely without worrying about the VA caseworkers. They learned that they no longer qualify for this benefit. They are not alone. With the VA conducting reviews to ensure participants meet new eligibility requirements introduced last year, as many as 6,000 may find out this month that they will not be receiving caretaker support anymore, that they've pretty much relied on for years and years and years and years and years. And they'll only have a little bit of not much notice for it. VA officials say the new eligibility rules were introduced with a 2018 law that extended the program to include severely injured veterans of other wars. So Vietnam, Korea, World War II, if they were still that. So you'd think, oh, this is a really good thing. But they changed the eligibility requirements to cut people out and to make it harder so that they could afford to have more people come into the program.
And let me defend the VA just a little bit here, because I was going through something with my mom, for example, where my stepdad has brain cancer and he's trying to get care, and we're trying to get all the different things that he's qualified, all the benefits that he qualifies to get to be given to him because he earned it, like by being in the Navy for 20 years. Well, one of the companies, I think they even heard talking on this show, they reached out to me and was like, hey, we actually help people get these benefits that a lot of folks don't know about. And we started going through the process, and there are these legal parameters that you have to meet. Well, some of them we didn't meet, like whether it be the amount of money that my parents make, or like how long these issues happen. Was he involved with the VA? There's certain parameters. And if you don't meet it, you don't meet it, and you no longer earn it. And I'm huge on that. And Kate, you've heard me say it a million times. If you've earned it, it's a benefit, it's something that you are entitled to. Conversely, the opposite, if you don't, you don't. And I don't feel like you should do things to get that if you don't earn it. Some of these organizations that are doing that knowingly tried to mislead the VA. Like, for example, one of them said one of the programs that they try to get us signed up for, my mom technically, because of the way the law is written, couldn't be the provider. They wanted me to say that I was going to do it. I live in Texas. She lives in Florida. How the fuck am I a daily provider for that? And you put it down on paper. So you have these organizations, they're like, oh, well, they never checked. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be a big deal. We've done a ton of these. So you have a lot of that kind of stuff happening where people who actually do need it, like the people that are in South Carolina, they're getting it taken away. It's becoming harder because there's these vulturous companies out there that are trying to defraud the government essentially and take a cut. That's how these little fly-by-night businesses are working, where you go in and they're like, oh, well, we can up your VA benefits this much, and all you have to do is give us 5% off the top of whatever we get. So if they get your VA benefit to go from $800 a month to $1,500 a month, they take the 5 or 10% off of the top of that, and you get much more money, and they get money forever essentially too.
Well, whatever the case, and like, we don't have the numbers on how much that's the case compared to how much people really need it. That could just be a small sliver.
It could.
We don't know if that's like really a huge problem, or if
no, but that's the reason why we talk about fraud being a real issue that they need to go after, because it affects people who are doing the right thing and making it more difficult for them.
Definitely fraud's a part of it. In this particular case, the trouble is that they have changed, when they switched the law, they changed the eligibility requirements so that and people weren't grandfathered in. So say
that's the mistake. Yeah.
This soldier has been getting care from his spouse for 15 years. All of a sudden, they're getting reassessed and he's no longer eligible. And said
people, and I've seen people online say, well, she can go out and get a job. Like, if that's been her job for 10 years, 5 years to be the caretaker of somebody, what does your resume look like at that point? The kind of job that you're getting after being just a caretaker, like in the home, if you weren't a nurse or something like that before, you're fucked. Like getting back into the career field after taking a 10, 15-year absence, not exactly easy.
And legacy participants who have been in this program for a long time are saying that the review process is inconsistent and fraught with error. And it's largely ignoring those with traumatic brain injuries and mental health issues. It's focusing on people who need physical help, and it's leaving out those with mental issues, the invisible wounds of war. The person who did our assessment completely skipped the section regarding supervision, protection, and instruction, said the wife. It is really hard for me to think it was not done on purpose, because that's probably a large amount of these. And it's easier to look at somebody who only has issues in their brain and say, oh, they're fine. They're fine. If I can't see it, then they're fine. The suspicion is common among the families being told they're no longer eligible. I feel like there was no consideration for my son's situation, said a mother who has served as her son's caregiver for 8 years. The mom, who also requested anonymity, learned she was dismissed from the program just weeks after her son was hospitalized for psychosis. I told him I planned to appeal, but he told me not to because so many other veterans are more hurt than me, she said. The family caregiver program, which was introduced in 2011 for post 9/11 veterans, has grown to roughly 33,000 participants who now receive $1,750 to $3,000 per month. And then again, with that 2018 VA Mission Act, now all these veterans from other wars are brought into it, but everyone's getting reassessed. It's kind of a mess. So
basically what you hear what's happening. If you're one of the people, or you know one of the people that are getting this, reach out to a veteran service organization that's in your area. You can go to the VA website or just whatever state you're in, veteran service organization, and give them a call. They'll help you go through this. And a lot of states, like Texas, for example, they have different attorneys and different advocates on staff that help you for free. And that's what they're for. There's congressional monies that are set aside for that. People give donations. So if you're going through something like this, and not just for this program specifically, but if you've ever gotten a reassessment letter from the VA, go with the Veteran Service Organization. You don't have to do it alone. A lot of it's super complicated and federal forms and shit like that. You don't want to be messing with. So just go with the Veteran Service Organization in your area. All you have to do is whatever state you're in, Veteran Service Organization, and there'll be several that come up, and just start working your way through that. And if you need help, I've done it a lot. Feel free to email me, chaps@barstoolsports.com, and I'll help you in whatever way I can there. Let's move on to round number 5. We're going to move on to some Russia updates about what they're doing in Syria. It is awful. And let's get started with that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Russia and Ukraine, and they're also doing awful stuff in Syria too. Not great. So the BBC did this where they found the three main bullet points about, because we were talking last week about Russia is embarrassing themselves. I mean, they're doing fucking horrible things, but they're also embarrassing themselves. They haven't performed nearly as well as the whole world, I think, thought they were going to. So they looked at some of the reasons why that was happening. So I just thought that was kind of interesting to look at.
Oh, I love talking Russian failures. Let's do that.
Okay. So bullet point 1, misguided assumptions. Russia's first mistake was to underestimate the strength of the resistance and the capabilities of Ukraine's own smaller armed forces. Russia, their defense budget, more than 60 billion. Ukraine's just over 4 billion. That's the difference there. So they looked at that and they were like, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. At the same time, Putin had embarked on ambitious modernization programs for his military, and he may have believed his own hype, thinking,
I've actually I read an article about that, and it was pretty fascinating because the premise was essentially that Putin forgot who Putin was. Like when he worked at the KGB, he would drastically overestimate what their capabilities were, like whenever they were going to be in any type of conflict. And now that he is the president of Russia, he has forgotten that that's what the KGB does. So he might have gotten briefs from like their generals over there explaining what their capabilities are, but what they can do and what they've said they can do are drastically different.
Yeah, and a bulk of that 60 billion was spent on nuclear arsenal and experimentation. So that included developing hypersonic missiles. And Russia,
not a lot on gas, it turns out.
Not a lot on gas or logistics or it doesn't matter if you have all that fancy shit if everything else is a mess.
One story that I read from a senior defense official said that it really shows how great American logistics are. Like they can't go 40 miles into a country that borders them, but we'll have our folks will be eating lobster in the middle of Fallujah, in the middle of the desert, in the middle of wintertime. Like we have it figured out and they don't.
Yeah, I bet they're not eating butter pecan ice cream at their outpost right now, like I once did. So
having fresh bags of milk.
Yeah, they're not having that. They're supposed to have built the world's most advanced tank, the T-14 Armada, but nobody's seen it anywhere in battle. I feel like it's their F-35, like they spent all this money on this tank. And it looks like tanks are, regardless of how fancy it is, looks like none of their tanks are having a good time right now. Might be a little bit of an outdated.
Well, because they're so smart, like them doing that shit where they're releasing their dams and flooding the area so the tanks can't get through. It's amazing the things that. Did you see that? Did we talk about that on the show?
We talked about that. Yep. Yeah. How they just flooded Ukraine, flooded the land. So the tanks got stuck. Like it's simple as that. At the start of the invasion too, everyone thought, oh, Russia's going to crush them in the air. They're going to have clear air advantage. But Ukraine's air defenses have proved really effective, and it's limited Russia's ability to maneuver. And as for their special forces, sure, they might be badass, but they can't do much or go far when the just can't keep up with them. It doesn't matter. So they can be as badass as they want to be. They can only go so far. And so they're actually not being that effective right now either. The second bullet point, low morale. They have a force of around 190,000 troops for this invasion, and most are already committed into that battle, but they have already lost around 10% of their force. And what is it that you said what was the percentage that makes a unit non-operable?
It's 10%. And that's 10%. And that's 10%. They've lost 10% death rate is what most estimates are saying now. Yeah. That 10% is kill or casualty. So like kill will be you're dead, casualty, you're injured. So either way, you're taken out of the fight. Those numbers I've heard up to 45,000 casualties so far.
Yeah. Ukraine claims to have killed 14,000 Russian troops, though US estimates it could be half that number. Nobody knows what the exact number is, but we do know it sure is a lot, whatever it is. Western officials say there's also evidence of low morale they're saying morale is super, super low. Another said troops were cold, tired, and hungry. They've been waiting in the snow for weeks in Belarus and Russia before invading. So they were already sitting out in the boonies going, what the fuck are we doing for a hot minute? And now shit's going wrong. Russia and they were probably promised a quick and easy battle. Don't worry, this sucks that we're sitting out here in the cold in Belarus, but in a week, we'll be taking over Ukraine and we'll be living it up in the city. And that's not how it's gone at all. Supplies and logistics is the last one. Russia has struggled with the basics. There's an old military saying that amateurs talk tactics while professionals study logistics. There is evidence that Russia has not given it enough consideration. Armored columns have run out of fuel, food, and ammo. Vehicles have broken down and been left abandoned. And then we've seen tons of videos of Ukrainian tractors putting in work. They're just putting in work, tugging tanks along the road.
It's just some of the best John Deere advertisement that you could possibly imagine.
It's honest work.
I mean, one of them was like no bigger than a very big lawnmower. And it was legit hauling this huge ass tank down the road with no issues. And the Ukrainian farmer looked happy as a pig in shit. I actually saw one video. I want it to be piped in. So Nick, put it in here. But there's a video that's going around, and it just so clearly illustrates how much every troop from no matter where you are in the country or in the world, you're essentially the same. Watch this clip of some Ukrainian soldiers trying to take out this Russian tank. It's hilarious.
Не-не-не, провода отлично.
Встаньте нормально, как стояли, блядь.
Не
вот
вижу
так.
проводов.
Вот танк, видишь?
Да, вижу.
Вон на нем хуй лазит.
Ага, вижу.
Видишь?
Да, вижу.
Давай, работаем. Родные, давай. Эту суку спалить. Родной, давай. Смотри, он там, сука, сверху лазит.
Да, вижу.
Давай, подводи его.
Сейчас.
Чтобы он, сука, не завелся. Не успел.
Сейчас дозвол на пуск. Дозвол.
Так вообще, сука, не болит. Есть пуск.
Есть.
Веди, родной.
Есть,
сука!
Есть.
When the guys are sitting there and they're going through it, and the one dude, is like, man, that tank looks longer than Putin's dinner table or his meeting table. Like, it was just the exact type of humor that I would imagine if I'm sitting in that tank with the people, we're fucking ripping it up too. And the one dude saying, "Oh, I haven't seen something that nice since your wife."
Yeah. And you can tell, like, too, I mean, obviously throughout the devastation, morale in Ukraine, they're prepared to fight. They're digging in and they're ready to go to the end, to the last bit. Their morale is much higher. It doesn't help Russia's running low on munitions. They may have fired already 900 long-range precision munitions, and they're already asking China to help some of its shortages. They're like, whoops, we fucked up, China, and we're telling China, and the world's telling China, please don't. And I think China, for the most part, is saying, and I'm sure they're being sneaky as fuck, though. Who knows? Anyway, in contrast, there's been a steady flow of Western supplied weapons going to Ukraine, which obviously another big boost for morale. The US just announced it will be providing an additional $800 million in defense support, as well as more anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles. Also, this is cute as a button. It's expected to include Switchblade, their small US kamikaze drone that can be carried in a backpack before being launched to deliver small explosive targets on the ground. Little Switchblade going up there.
I was reading from a dude that used to work in the soft community about that he's seen them work in action. And he said that they are terrifying, like, because there's absolutely nothing that they'll be able to do, like, to get away from it. And they're so small, you don't see them coming. And the next thing you know, you're dead. So
damn. Yeah. Not good for
brutal.
morale and their fancy Russian tanks. But I just thought that was interesting. And the sources for that I kind of left them out for brevity, but there's like sources that you can look up showing that all that stuff is true. Like, Russia's a little bit of a mess.
Is there any conversation you want to be a part of less than President Biden and President Xi talking about what their two different countries are going to be using or doing?
No,
that
I can't think of
the most boring shit, like having to sit through translations and all that stuff. No, thank you. I don't want to be part of that.
Bizarre to me. I follow like a wide range of left and right Twitter, whatever, and I'm still seeing tweets by certain guys being like, oh, look at Russia fucking kicking ass out there while we're working on diversity training in our military.
Bizarre.
And it's like, what? Are you paying attention to the news at all?
They're getting their fucking asses kicked.
They're getting their fucking kicked.
They are flat. And I think that we obviously are a pro-Ukrainian podcast. We're not pro-Russia in this at all. The Russians are doing insane damage to a lot of these cities, and they're killing a bunch of civilians and children and being brutal, which is,
and I feel like these guys are equating that with being badass.
I know.
I think these guys are equating, look at them, the Russians are out there killing Ukrainian kids like badasses, like cool ass motherfuckers, while we're in diversity training. It's like, what are you talking about?
Oh, are you talking about that Papalopoulos guy that was one of the dudes that was indicted for the Russian investigation on Trump's?
Yes, but I mean, I've seen that sentiment throughout, like on a bunch of like dude bro meme pages. Like, I've seen that sentiment all over, and I'm like, I feel like they don't follow the news.
It feels like they're just trying to be into very stereotypical masculine things. Like, we don't have to be very pro-war, especially people that aren't good at it. Maybe try a little bit of art. You can do art with paint your life. Get a professional hand-painted portrait created from any photo, a truly affordable price, or combine photos. And Kate, I'm going to go off the ad read here. I told Johnny Boy when we were doing Barstool Confessions, I told him, this is a brilliant idea for somebody, like if Mother's Day, for example. Mother's Day is coming up in May. So if you have Mother's Day or a holiday like that, or Valentine's Day for you, a new mom, if he went, let's say Pat goes into your Instagram, finds a picture with you with cash, find the one with the most likes, because that means a majority of people like that one the best. And you go in and get that added as a painting, like get it painted, and it's a picture of you guys on one of a photo that you clearly like because you put it out on your Instagram, and that other people like too. You get it as a painting. That's an easy out of the park gift that's knocked out, right?
Oh, absolutely. Also, I feel like moms are always taking pictures of dad and the kids doing cute stuff, and the dads never, ever, ever return the favor.
I'm guilty of this too. Yeah.
There's this hashtag proof mom exists, which is when moms are included in photos with their kids. It's so rare. Like, the guys never think of us. If you use this and you take a great photo of your spouse with the kids, and then you get this painting done, you get this sent to you, that's extra brownie points, I feel like.
Big time brownie points. Go do that right now. All you have to do is text 0 to 64,000. Super easy. At paintyourlife.com, there's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded, guaranteed. And right now, for a limited time offer, get 20% off your painting. That's right, 20% off and free shipping. To get this special offer, text the word 0 to 64,000. That's 0 to 64,000. Text 0 to 64,000. Paint Your Life. Celebrate the moments that matter the most. Message and data rates may apply. Terms apply. Available at paintyourlife.com/terms. Again, text 0 at 64,000. Let's move on to a little bit of save rounds and alibis. We're going to start with some unfortunate news that came out of this Arctic training that they were doing in Norway. Kate, what happened there?
Yeah, this is my only save round today. The U.S. Marine Corps has identified the 4 Marines who died when their Osprey aircraft crashed Friday in the Norwegian town in the Arctic Circle during a NATO exercise. It's Captain Matthew J. Tomkowitz, age 27, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Captain Ross A. Reynolds, age 27, Leominster, Massachusetts. Gunnery Sergeant James W. Speedy, age 30, of Cambridge, Ohio. And Corporal Jacob M. Moore, age 24, Catlettsburg, Kentucky. And it just, they're looking at their photos and seeing their ages. And we say, I'm a broken record with this, but people putting it on the line time and time again, training to protect our country. And just so much love to their family and to the troops that were out there with them. I'm sure they're hurting right now. So thinking of them.
No doubt. Nick?
Yeah, my save round is so like Kate. I know you mentioned like how like the dads, take the cute photos with the kiddos and stuff. See, the one thing I would say though is I take photos of my wife all the time, Gia. The thing is, the approval process to get that photo online is so stressful.
That's fair.
That I have given up doing it. Like if you go like to my Instagram, it's just my family stuff. There's not many like with my wife. It's just because it's just like, I don't know. I'm
That's
just
fair.
not prepared to go into that. The angle needs to be the lighting. And I don't want to do any filters or anything because it's just my kid, So like I try not to do that. So that's just my point of view. I think we want to take photos.
Nick's gotten in trouble about this.
I've been
plenty
in
of times.
so
That's
much
clear.
trouble. Like if you sent a rogue photo up that wasn't approved.
Well, no, this is part 2 of my beef with you, Nick, with all of you.
Mhm.
I will take the most beautiful photo from the best angle, amazing lighting, like a photo for him and the baby to treasure forever, because I put some thought into the photo. You guys just point and click. And it's like, why does my foot look 2 feet long here? Why is my tooth?
Well, because y'all
have a
always
shadow
look
over it?
weird. And I think it's because whenever y'all have pictures,
You guys
that
don't know how to take pictures.
You
It's
guys
your
do
fault.
pictures
down
all
and
the
tilt,
time.
down and tilt. I know.
Yeah, where you have all these different rules where you'll be like, oh, I got to do it at an angle. Got to do a sorority girl pose. Got to do all this shit. And no, guy, we don't do that for our selfies. Like if Nick takes a selfie, you think he's doing it from the up? No, he's doing it like straight up his nose hairs, looking like an idiot. And he doesn't care. He just posts it because he's like, this is what I look like when I glance in the mirror after I take a shit. It's what I look like. And women got to add another couple layers of it to make it look better.
I'm giving
Put in the work.
elbow drops to fake teddy bears out there
Yeah,
on the internet.
right.
And I don't give a
Fair
damn how
enough.
I look like. But
Fine.
my wife though, that's all I'll say. Is that it's a
Like, he
little
almost
bit
had an
different.
apology.
Yeah.
All right.
He's trying his best with the picture.
Fair.
All right.
He's better.
I have been going out on the weekends and doing a little bit of hiking, which has been wonderful.
Yeah.
The squad, we were doing some family therapy, and the family therapist was like, everybody needs to just get out of the house and get off your electronics, bring one phone for safety and leave the rest of them in the car, and then just go out and do your thing, which has been lovely. And I know that they have an ad with us in Rocky Boots, but my whole squad is legitimately in Rocky Boots now,
Mhm.
like going around the different house. And Cardi fucking loves it.
Hell
Like
yeah.
getting up high on the boulders and jumping off. They're like, I don't feel like I could get hurt wearing these. You probably can. You probably can't get hurt wearing the Rocky Boots, but it's been awesome to go out and do that type of thing and wear the product. that you
Rocky
actually
boots. You
like.
physically cannot get hurt in them. That's an official statement, right? They can say that.
That's a great one. I think they would rather say go with rockyboots.com and do the promo code ZBT at checkout for 25% off like we normally do. But if you want to see some more of the daily facts that we're doing, make sure you go to the YouTube page because we're putting those up on Shorts and Instagram. We have different kind of like 1 minute man. If you like the way Kevin does that, Kate and I have been doing that for military stuff, make sure you check that out and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Other than that, I guess Cons will be back here on Friday. Listen, I guess I do need to say something too. I'll be serious for a moment. I really was sad that I wasn't able to go to Connor's wedding. I had a family obligation that came up that I absolutely had to be at. So I wasn't able to go. And Connor was very understanding, which I appreciate. And I talked to his wife and things like that. Not something that I wanted to miss. Even though I do bust his balls, I love him. He's an invaluable part of this show. And I'm so happy that he found his bride and that they are doing great. And they're looking forward to the next couple of chapters in their life, many chapters of their life, having kids and getting a house and using cross-country mortgage and doing all those things. So I'll be glad for him to be back, having that big old thing out of the way, because having a wedding is great. Having a child is great. But when you can finally move past and start talking about something else, huge. It's just huge. So I'm excited for him to have a dinner with his new wife where they don't have to talk about wedding plans anymore. That's the best gift I could possibly give. We'll be back here on Friday. It's on the retreat.